I had never had a plan. Never.
Don't have a plan.
No, I didn't. And the thing is that when you do what you love, the money will follow. And so all I've ever done is did what I did. And somehow the universe always, because I lived a code of honesty.
Sure.
And I was a good guy. It's like I was at one with the universe. I was not unkind to anyone. I had no hatred in me. And so those are the things that keep people into bad life choices, or too much alcohol or drugs or any of those things. And I was so grateful that I got free of all that.
Same business, different day.
Good afternoon and welcome back to the Same Business, Different Day podcast. I am your host, Zeke Corley, and I want to thank you all for tuning in to another wonderful episode of our show. I want to first also introduce Pops, our favorite guest co-host coming back. How you doing, Pop?
I'm doing good.
Good. I'm glad to have you here today with us to introduce this gentleman that you know so well. So, well, first I want to say a business lesson, the Same Business, Different Day. Does a business lesson, at least one every episode. And this one, I want to say, this is business lesson number 487. If you are a creative, you can be a business as well. Just be sure that your business plan doesn't just come with one-time inspiration. It's not a business if you can only deliver a product once. So, like I said, I'm excited to have our guest today. We've been talking about getting together to do this for about 7 months now. So it's finally happening. We want to welcome Randy Renner to our show.
Well, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much.
How you doing, Randy?
Well, this is all new for me. I haven't usually done this kind of thing before, but
really?
No, not really.
Okay.
But I've been in the recording and music industry for a long, long time. And
you're giving it away already.
Yeah.
Let's start by talking about the early years. Okay. So if we talk about the early years, you remember? Or actually, where did you grow up?
In downtown LA. I was born in downtown LA.
Okay.
And 1948.
Okay.
And but I've had a good memory my whole life because I even remember when I was one, and I remember this house that we lived in. And I actually, what happened is that my second dad actually raised me.
Okay.
And how that ended up happening was that my mom had a childhood sweetheart, this guy Pat Conlon, and when they turned 18. He decides he's going to go in the Army. So in the interim, she meets my dad, and he was really nice, had a good job, all this kinds of stuff. And thank God, because I came out of their union, right?
Sure.
And so, and then when I was about under a year old, she heard that Pat Conlon was coming back, and she really realized that and my real dad wanted to move us to San Francisco. But my mom really wanted to be with her mother, my grandmother, because my grandfather was abusive and he was an alcoholic. And so she said, "No, I'm not leaving my mom." And then she says, and she said, "Plus, I actually love the guy that's coming back."
Sure.
So I think what would be good, you want to go to San Francisco, we don't. So I think it would be good if Pat just raises Randy. So he just gave me his last name without ever legally adopting me, which was actually good later on when I was dealing with the draft. I was able to change my name back to an unregistered name. and I got out of the draft that way. So I know
I'm looking forward to some fun stories from you today. Pops, your memory that good? You go back to one?
No, I can't go back to one. And,
I remember.
Do you?
I do.
Do you? Can you remember what you wanted to be when you grew up? Like just early aspirations.
Well, I was just a little kid, and then my mom, because she had me at 18 years old, she was young. Mm-hmm. She and her best friend used to hitchhike to the Palladium to see Sinatra fronting Dorsey's band. And so she would play these records, and she would also play the piano. So I would listen to her at night playing Fur Elise and all these different things, you know. But I was, even as a little kid, I would always be looking at her albums. Mm-hmm. And this was recorded at this studio. I was like 9.
Yeah.
I'm looking, and I'm going, this guy played drums. This guy did this. And you'd see those things on liner notes.
Yeah.
And so, and then at 9 years old, my cousin and his mom went down to Tijuana, and he comes back and gives me a set of bongos. These were the kind of bongos that had thumbtacks holding this on the top, the skin. So you had to hold them over a stove or they would just sound horrible. So you get them nice and tight and stuff, and it'd last about a half an hour. And so me and my friend Jimmy LeBou were both played bongos. It was that was the thing. So that kind of started it. And then when Elvis came out, my first 45 was Elvis's first. It was, I think, All Shook Up or something. And so, and then my mom.
This is your first record that you ever bought was All Shook Up Elvis.
Well, my mom, I was just flipped out over Elvis. As soon as I heard rock and roll, as soon as I heard Elvis, I was like 9.
Okay.
And that was it. That's all I could think about. And so. And then my mom said, well, you know, she came in one day and she goes, I got a surprise. She goes, we're going to go see Elvis live. Mm-hmm. It was the last show he did in 58 before he went in the Army. So this was truly Elvis.
Right.
This was not clam-baked Viva Las Vegas Elvis. This was Elvis with his original band.
Okay.
So at 9 or 10 years old, I saw this show.
That's great.
And if you look at a website called Elvis at the Pan Pacific Auditorium, it's so legendary. And he did 2 nights, and he was so excited to be with his band again, because for a while he played with all these other guys. And he told the colonel, he goes, look, I'm going to the Army. I really want my band. Yeah. And so that's what happened. And I saw that show, and he was so outrageous that the next morning, the paper said, if Elvis doesn't tone it down for the second night, we're shutting him down. Oh, okay. So the second night, he played in a dark suit and just pretty much just sat on the edge of the stage.
Just mellow. So he fell for it. He did. Yeah, he wasn't a renegade.
Yeah, and what's really far out, though, is that I saw this book about him where they interviewed him at this book at Costco, and I was just looking through it, and it said they asked him what his favorite performance was, and he said, I'd have to say the Pan Pacific show.
Probably the first night.
Night one.
Yeah.
And that's what I saw.
That's awesome.
And I still remember that to this day. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was just, yes, you know.
Now, was that your first introduction to rock and roll?
Seeing it live.
Well, other than that, though, I mean, was Elvis the first rock and roll player that you knew of?
Yeah, Elvis, and then Little Richard, let's see, who else was it? Jerry Lee Lewis, all those guys out of Sun Records. I mean, it was a whole slew. Johnny Cash came out. They all came out of Sun Records in Memphis. And I just thought, these are the guys. And I was telling Bill, I go, that back then, Wolfman Jack had a pirate radio station off of Tijuana out in international waters. And we used to have these little crystalline, they looked like a toothbrush, electronic toothbrush, but it had a little one ear plug, and it would pick up this antenna. Oh, okay. And so at night, I would be laying there in bed listening to like Jimmy Reed and all the black versions of like the stuff that, because rock and roll was coming in and people were so paranoid.
But you weren't hearing that on the regular radio.
You heard Pat Boone doing Blueberry Hill. Yeah. I mean, it was like Pat Boone instead of Little Richard. Fats Domino. No. Right. You know, and so, I've always just been hooked on rock and roll and music. That's just all I've ever.
Always. That's what it sounds like.
That's all I could ever think about. That's it.
And so, go ahead.
Well, I'm just wondering, on the L.A. music scene, okay, there were a lot of other famous disc jockeys. Remember Hunter Hancock? Yeah. You listen to any of those stations or any
I
of those
listened to
programs?
mostly KRLA and KFWB,
Yes,
and those were the stations that were really playing everything. And then when stereo came in, like KPFK out of Pasadena and all those they would play whole albums. That was kind of a cool thing, you know. But in the 50s, it was 45s, you know, and you had this little record player. And even my friends had these cars that had these record players in their cars.
Right.
And you would stack these 45s in. And then there was this thing that the lowriders would do is have this vibrasonic, which was just reverb. But every time their cars, because they had no springs, because they would lower their cars and they'd be cruising around, and you'd hit a bump and go, you'd hear all this reverb and stuff.
Sound like it's talking about you, Pop.
Yeah, I think so.
You had a record player in your car?
Yes, I did.
Was it a lowrider?
I did.
Oh, God.
Also had
I grew,
a sound bar in the car too. Okay.
I grew up in Whittier, man. It was like,
Okay.
let's take a trip down Whittier Boulevard. Yeah, I mean, it was close to Montebello. It was close to East LA. So I knew Mexicans. I knew surfers. I knew all the cool guys. I mean, it's like, you know.
You were in the mix.
I was in the mix. I was on good terms with everybody.
That's great.
And it was like, I've never had a thing about race or any of that stuff because everybody was just all the best music. There would be no rock and roll without black people.
Sure.
I mean, seriously? And that's all Elvis did. If you listen to Elvis's first album, it's all blues songs that are redone in this kind of rock sound.
100%.
But it's all comes back to blues. And Elvis did this cool thing was, as a kid, he loved gospel music. So he would go to church with his parents in this all-white church in Memphis. And he would sneak out and go to the black church. There's pictures of Elvis in a full black church, this one white face sitting in the middle of all these people listening to black gospel music.
Soaking it up.
Soaking it up. And then because the bars had people like Jackie Wilson and all these people coming through town, he would sneak into the back of these bars and watch these people. And that's where he got his stuff.
I get.
And if you see the way he dressed like
The dress, the moves. Yeah, we know.
So that's why he was so cool at that time.
You got your history down, though. I like this because
it's apparent that we're going to be walking down memory lane.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I like the fact that you bring up Jackie Wilson. A lot of people don't mention Jackie Wilson, but it's one of the
God,
greats, one of the
yeah.
pioneers. Love it. So, can you remember regular jobs, early jobs, first jobs, anything like that?
Well, when I got out of high school, I got a job. I got a job in a leather shop making police belts and holsters.
What? Wow.
I know. But then my boss had a Stingray 63 Vet. So he had me. He says, "Look, can you go out and like polish it and clean it up and stuff." So I was in Sierra Madre on the main drag in Sierra Madre, which is where I lived. And this girl I went to high school with, she had one of the Studebaker Lark convertibles, and it had a V8 in it. So she's going, so I'm in this 283 or 327 Corvette, and I'm like, okay, yeah, and I hit second and blew the rear end.
Oh, no.
You lost that job.
So I got fired. And,
You're lucky he didn't pull a gun out of one of the holsters you made.
oh, I know. But what he did is he said, "Oh, don't worry about it." And then he waited for the rest of the 2 weeks that I would normally get paid, and then he fired me.
Okay.
So I worked it off.
North County Daily Star is the leading source for news and community information. There are 650,000 residents along the 78 corridor and 5 unique cities that share the region, North County, San Diego. We work and play in these cities, so we are all interested in what happens in our common region. There is no cost to subscribe, and it is continuously updated. So look for us on your mobile device or computer at ncdailystar.com.
The Same Business, Different Day podcast is brought to you by YourInsurancePlace.com. YourInsurancePlace.com is a conglomeration of 2 agencies, Network One Insurance and Bill Corley Insurance Agency. Their property and casualty agents and brokers specialize in commercial insurance of all types, general liability, workers' compensation, professional liability, auto, agribusiness, and much more. They also have great insurance carriers for your homes and autos. How do I know they are that good? Because I'm one of the agents. We believe in ourselves, and you will too. Contact us at yourinsuranceplace.com or call us direct at 866-384-0479. That's yourinsuranceplace.com.
Okay.
But yeah, that was a guy named something Perkins. I can't remember his other name, but Safariland is still making police belts. I mean, it's a pretty successful company, but jeez.
Did you go to school after high school?
I no, because once I got out of high school, because what happened was I was living in Whittier until I was 16. And what happened was right when I was about 14 and a half, my second dad, Pat, the guy that raised me, him and my mom were splitting up. He came in and he just said, he says, I'm out of here. And he just left. Mm-hmm. This is right around Christmas. And so anyway, so I lived from there to 16 with no leash. I mean, I'm seriously, I had just, because my mom worked nights as a waitress.
Okay.
And I had a party at the house constantly. Mm-hmm. You know, in fact, in front of my house, because Whittier had a lot of guys with like GTOs and vets and all this stuff, because there was rich guys up in Friendly Hills, and then there was the barrio, and you had everything in between, and everybody knew each other. And so I just had these insane parties. It looked like the starting, like a drag race thing. There would be these, because everybody would peel out as they left my house. So the neighbors hated me.
Yeah.
So anyway, so my mom says, okay, I'm moving to New Jersey so in the interim, about 6 months later, a year later, you know, like when I'm 16, it was a year and a half later, she says to me, she goes, well, I'm moving to New Jersey with Bob, who she's now marrying, this new guy. Okay. And the third would be my second ex-dad, but I mean, he's not my dad at all. His name was Bob Huntsman. And so they end up moving to New Jersey. And so she said, your dad's going to move back in until the house sells. Then he's moving to a place called Sierra Madre Canyon. Okay. Okay. So I go, okay. I go, wow, Sierra Madre Canyon. So I get into some like major problems with my dad, and he goes, "Look, that's it."
You hadn't had much of a relationship with him at that point, right?
Well, no, I did till I was 14 and a half. It'd only been since he left. He left, so it was only a year and a half. So he's moving back in. My mom goes to New Jersey, and so I really kind of pissed my dad off somehow. Where he goes, "No, I can't take this," and so he says, "You're going to New Jersey, live with your mom." So this is like, you know, right around just prior to Thanksgiving. And so I'm on my first jet flight ever, and I fly to Parsippany. I fly to Newark, and I end up in a place called Parsippany, New Jersey. And after living in Whittier with surfing and blondes, and
you said this is around Thanksgiving, so it was out the freezing.
I went over to this over to this school, and I'm walking around. There's no blondes. There's no tan girls. There's no. And I'm going, oh God! And it's this small hick town on this highway, whatever, and I'm like, oh God. And so I started making phone calls to my friend every night for hours after everybody was asleep. I ran up about $300 or $400 on her.
Remember long distance calls?
Yes. And so what I did is I had him send me a fake telegram from his parents saying it was okay if I stayed with them. I could go back to school in Whittier. Okay. My mom, seeing that phone bill, bought that and says, okay, you're going back. Yeah. She says, but I'm not paying for the plane ticket. You're taking a bus. So I take this 3-day bus ride from Newark, New Jersey to L.A. Unreal. And the first stop in Pittsburgh, I'm getting a malt. And I didn't think of having a second carry-on with toothbrushes and stuff. I just had a suitcase underneath the bus. Uh-huh. And so for 3 days, I have
same clothes, everything.
Same clothes. And so the first night, I'm standing there at this, getting a malt just as they're boarding. And the malt machine suddenly explodes, and this big stream of chocolate goes all over me. And okay, time to get on the bus. And I had to wipe off with napkins all sticky and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I was like that for all the way to L.A. And so anyway.
Sure, the people sitting next to you were happy.
Oh, God. And so I get to L.A., and my mom says, whatever you do, she goes, don't let your dad know you're back in town. I said, okay. She says, she says, just because she thinks I'm staying with my friend's
Right.
parents,
Yeah.
which is not happening. I'm actually staying at his house, but he's sneaking me in at night. I sleep in his closet. So
Okay.
I'm literally on the streets.
Sure.
The first I get back and I take a bus to 1 block from my friend. And guess who pulls up as I'm walking down that 1
Your dad.
block? My dad.
Uh-huh.
And he goes, what are you doing here? I'm going, well, I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, well, you're not back with me. And then he drives off. He's pissed.
Oh, God.
Okay. So for the next 2 weeks, so I try to go back to school and they go, no, you got to bring a parent in.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh God.
Mm-hmm.
So all day long, I would just kind of hang out, you know? And so all the kids used to hang out in Whitwood Center in Whittier and just go to Jolly Roger and just do nothing but just hang out.
Mm-hmm.
And so my dad suddenly shows up one day and he comes up and he goes, look, he goes, we're moving to Sierra Madre. He goes, you got 2 choices. You can come with us or you can go to juvenile hall. He says, it's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, God, I guess we're going to Sierra Madre, you know?
Right.
But that turned into being the most pivotal cultural thing I have ever had happen. Because Whittier was exactly like American Graffiti. Hot rods, low riders, girls, you know, all that whole thing. Suddenly I'm in this place where it's artists, dope dealers, musicians, belly dancers.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I'm talking about major, amazing musicians. One of them went on to play with Jackson Browne. One of them is a belly dancer that is worldwide known.
Wow.
I mean, it was just shocking. And it's just this little, Sierra Madre is if you go, you know, you've seen the Rose Parade.
Yeah.
Okay, the Rose Parade goes down Colorado Boulevard, and then it turns left on Sierra Madre Boulevard. And right at Pasadena High School, there's an ROTC building and a park called Victory Park. They would park the floats at Victory Park. So that was the final destination for the floats. Mm-hmm. Well, if you keep going down Sierra Madre Canyon, it starts to turn and parallel Colorado Boulevard all along the mountains there. Mm-hmm. The last signal enters into into Sierra Madre. There's 4 stop signs all the way to Arcadia, which is Santa Anita, which takes you down to the racetrack in Arcadia, Santa Anita Racetrack. Mm-hmm. So there are no stoplights in Sierra Madre. And I was just there like in February. It's exactly the same. And the canyon is not like a sprawling Topanga Canyon. It's this hobbit land with houses on the cliffs and a creek running through a dam at the top. You can hike up to Mount Wilson. I mean, it is insane.
Wow. I think that your transition to Sierra Madre is a perfect transition for us right now. So let's reintroduce Randy Renner, writer, singer, producer, arranger, living musical legend in Southern California. We continue our conversation with the owner of Pepperland Recording Studios, Randy Renner. So now you got around these folks, and these folks seem to be like inspirational to you because you got so many artists around, right? And
what was far out is I remember like my dad dropped me off at Pasadena High School. My first thing, he said, like, when you're done, catch the bus. Mm-hmm. Get off at Mountain Trail, which is just through town a little bit, and come up Mountain Trail. You go down this street called Sturtevant, and I'm going, okay, so I do this. And I walk down, which is kind of a regular Pasadena kind of nice houses and stuff. I come around this bend, and all of a sudden there's just all these houses on the cliffs. Mm-hmm. And there's this little funky old-time market. That's what it was called, the old-time market. I walked in, and there was about 3 guys sitting around playing acoustic guitars around a pot-belly stove. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not in Whittier anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and then everything is just, there's small streets. I mean, you literally can't speed on the streets because they're only like barely 1 lane wide. And because it's built into the fabric of the fact that there is a live creek that runs down from a dam, mm-hmm. Everything is built against the mountains and on trails and stuff. So there's really only like 5 streets that run through this whole thing.
Yeah.
And you can drive around Sierra Madre Canyon probably in 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But you can walk it. It'll take you 4 hours because there's all these houses built on the bluff and all this stuff. So it was a great place for dope dealers because they could hear the cops because cops drove these these Dodges that, you know, and so we had all these back trails that we would do all our business on, walking around in the back. Nobody knew. So what happened is that because I still, we were talking about when I was living in Whittier, my best friend Jimmy and I both had the bongos.
Yeah.
Well, at one time, his parents for Christmas bought him a set of drums.
I was going to ask you, when did you learn to play?
Well, I could play bongos really good because there was a song by Preston Epps that was out when I was younger called Bongo Rock. And it was like a surf tune, but it was, you know, it was bongos. And so Jimmy and I both used to just play that and play that record a million times. So Jimmy and I were like brothers.
Yeah.
And so his parents bought him this, and then when I approached my mom, she said, no, they're too loud. You can't have those. And so Jimmy went on to becoming the youngest, the best drummer in California under 18.
Oh.
And then he got into one of the most premier surf bands at the time that was putting out records and stuff. And I got into trouble. I got in trouble with the police. I stole cars. I did all kinds of bad stuff.
Right.
And so, anyway, so when I got into the canyon and stuff, and so what happened was I actually, a year after high school, it was the year of Summer of Love and all that stuff, and everything was great. You know, we were all, you know, I quit my job and I just started crashing at a friend's house, and we were all smoking dope and everything. And then when winter came, that's when things got dark because suddenly it's winter. And in San Francisco, the same thing. It's like everybody suddenly were inside all the time.
Okay.
Which made people start to, and at that time, speed and heroin suddenly comes into the mix. And so I fell into that for like 6 months. And for like 6 months, I was on the streets. I was down to 120 pounds. I was a mess.
Yeah.
And so
you weren't playing music then
I
either.
was, no, but I was still hanging around with, when I moved to Sierra Madre, I made friends again with a great drummer. So I was always able to play my friends' drums. So, I mean, I didn't have my own, but anytime I was ever at my friend's house, they'd say, yeah, go ahead and play a drum. So I had it. Yeah. I needed drums.
Right.
So what was really amazing was that at one point I was really in a funky place with hard drugs and stuff. It was winter of '68, and like fall into spring, and like right around February, I just thought, God, I'm gonna die. And but I still didn't know what I was gonna do. I had no idea. I had no money. I had been just crashing around. I just had no future whatsoever.
Wow.
And I just thought, God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? You know? So I called my mom, and my mom became an alcoholic with her third husband. So she was I couldn't ask her for anything. But the prior summer in August, before the slide into the winter of dark drugs and stuff, I actually went to San Francisco to do a pot deal with these two guys. And I realized when we were up there that my real dad lives up there. And I have never met this guy. So here I am, 19 years old. Yeah. I look up in the phone book, sure enough, Bill Renner. I go, wow, I'll call him. So I call him, his wife answers. She goes, oh, but I said, oh, this is Randy. I think I'm his son. She goes, oh my God. She goes, he owns a equipment rental place over on Market Street. So he's early morning is when he's drill things, trailer hitches, all that stuff. So that was his business. And so she just go over there and surprise him. And so we drive over there.
Now, she was nice, right? This wasn't a setup.
No.
Okay.
No. She told me she was blown away. She wanted to meet me.
Okay.
And he had never seen me since I was 1 year old.
Right.
And so I walk over there. So my friends kind of parked down out just on the outside, and I walked over and I saw this guy directing everybody. So I waited until he kind of was done, and he walked over to me. He goes, "Hi, I help you?" And I said, "Are you Bill Renner?" He goes, "Yeah." And I go, "I'm your son." And he's just like, he was in shock.
Sure.
You know, so he said, "Look," he goes, "I still am busy in my thing, but I'm going to come home for lunch." He goes, "Here's my address. Go to my house," he goes, "and meet my wife and your half brothers and sisters and stuff."
Yeah.
Which I didn't even know, and I haven't met since that day.
Sure.
But anyway, I went over there. So that was amazing. So then back again to the end of the cycle of me being on hard drugs, suddenly I'm realizing, God, it's like my mom won't give me any help. Who's going to help me? God, would you please, like, who can help me?
Yes.
And I thought, my dad, let me just give him a call and just see. So I call him on the phone and I go, I said, I'm kind of in a dark place right now. I don't have a house and I'm just crashing at people's houses. I didn't want to tell him I was taking hard drugs or anything, but I was just reaching out to him.
Of course.
And I said, is there any possible way you could loan me some money? And he goes, well, how much? And just out of the blue, I mean, this is ridiculous. I said, I don't know, $100. What's $100 going to do?
Sure.
So he sends me $100, Western Union. I go pick it up. The first thing I do is I take out my friend, these two musicians, my guitar player and friend who I still know, and the drummer that was my best friend. Mm-hmm. I said, look, we were all in the same place. They really wanted to get out of this mess too. Uh-huh. So there was a place called Sir George's Smorgasbord where you paid $1.75 to get in. You could eat all you want.
Okay.
So we would go in there wearing peacoats, which have pockets, about
Sure.
5 peacocks, So we just loaded up with rolls and biscuits and just tons of stuff, 8 tons of stuff. So when we came out, I had about $90 left. And so the next morning, so I managed to go up to Sierra Madre and spend the night at somebody's house. They let me crash on their floor. And I get up and went down to this place called Mary's Market, this funky little market that's still there, actually. I was there in February. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just standing there, and it was nice and sunny. It was February, and I just was standing outside. And this guy, Pat, comes walking out. He goes, hey, man, what's going on? I go, oh, what it is. And he goes, you want to buy a kilo? I go, how much? He goes, $90. And I go, yes, I do. I bought that. I overturned it because that's 32 ounces at $10. That's $320 return. Mm-hmm. I turned about 5 of those in the next 4 days. At the end of the week, I had a car. Mm-hmm. The following week, I had a house. I have never been down since then.
What's the lesson we're teaching the kids? No, this is a good story, though. And you bounced back and you got off the drugs, and that was an important piece.
So I did that, and then and then I was just a kind of a pot dealer, and I would not ever sell hard drugs. I would never sell hard drugs. So it was all just pot and stuff, But it enabled me to buy drums. So I bought drums, and I was living in a kind of a San Francisco style thing where there was a duplex. And then there was a set of garages underneath, and there was a small garage underneath. And so I was living on the top. And so what I did is I bought all these egg crates and egg cartons, and I literally put egg cartons all over the wall and all over the ceilings in this little thing. Yeah. And then I ran down about 15 headphone jacks, all plugged into each other, these cords. Yeah. And I would put on a whole stack of albums of the Stones and Zeppelin and Cream and all this stuff. And all I would do is just play the drums for, I'm talking 10, 12 hours a day constantly. Yeah. And within 1 year, I was in a band. And then about 6 months later, I had a tape deck. And I started recording stuff. Okay. And then the Draft were pursuing me so bad. And I kept appealing. Mm-hmm. And I even got, at that time, everybody was getting draft lawyers. So I bought this draft lawyer, and it just, nothing was getting me out. And and plus, back to when I graduated from high school, I drove my dad's car off a cliff in Sierra Madre Canyon and broke my nose in 8 places. The car went over a house, hit a tree, and came down with the taillights down. I mean, the newspaper said, luckily, it'll be alive. Yeah. So this is right out of high school. Yeah. Okay, so the nose thing, I was always trying, because I couldn't breathe out of one side for the longest time, and they kept passing me for this draft thing. So finally, what happened was that, so in 71, I was in this band, and they sent me a notice again, and I go, God, it's like, and the draft guy, my lawyer goes, well, he goes, you may have to go.
You gotta go.
So I'm thinking, God, I can't do this. I'm not going to go to Vietnam. Am I going to go to Canada? And all of a sudden, it dawned on me that I have and I got thinking, wow, I wish I had another name. And all of a sudden, it dawned on me that my mom had my real birth certificate with Randy Renner on it. Mm-hmm. There was no Randy Conlon. He was just in my school stuff. Nobody had computers back then, so everything was on paper.
Yeah.
So I wasn't registered on the draft under Randy Renner. So what I ended up doing, I went down to my mom's, got a Social Security, got a driver's license, sold my car to myself, and under the new name, and I moved to Topanga Canyon for 4 months with my band in '71. Mm-hmm. And then we
Topanga Canyon, and that's where
I ended up.
A lot of this story goes.
Okay, and that's where we're gonna cut this story.
That's a good place to stop.
And we do want to put a disclaimer out there. We are not advocating live your life according to Randy's.
But that's how Randy lived his, though.
But that's how he turned his life around.
That's right. That's right. So now in Topanga, that's where you were actually doing shows. You were playing music out there, and you were the drummer for a band?
Oh, yeah. Well, but first what happened, but when I moved over to the first time with the band, and then 4 months later, we even had a record deal, almost. We did a recording at Wolfman Jack's studio, and we actually, this guy Wiley and this other guy had been working with Chris Christopherson and all kinds of different people, and so we actually made a demo and all that stuff. Everything was great. And then the band, and then I ran out of money because I was paying for all this.
Sure.
And so the band kind of broke up, and I ended up back in Sierra Madre again and hooked up with my wife. And both of us became vegetarians, and we both got into meditation and yoga. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, and then so when I came back, I had a feeling, because I was gone 4 months, that the feds were probably looking for me. So I put in a change of an address to one of my future wife's friends in Alhambra nearby to see if they would go there, and they did. So I called my draft lawyer and I go, "Look, dude, you got to get these guys off of me." And so he does.
You keep bringing it back to the tricks.
No, I got it. So anyway, so he says, "Look," he goes, "next time you may have to go."
Right.
So I thought at that point, because I was doing yoga and stuff, and I could only breathe out through one side of my nose, I thought, I should just get this fixed, because I'm not getting out. Mm-hmm. It's not working. So I applied for Medicare to get a surgery, and they said, sure. And so they set it for 7th of June in 1972. Mm-hmm. My birthday's on the 13th, and the draft notice. So I set that operation up. I get my draft notice for the 12th. I have this major surgery on my break. They had to re-break in 8 places. When I walked into the draft board to go into the Army, my eyes were full of blood. I had this bandage across my face that just had all this pus in it. Ugh. I walked in, and the drill sergeant looks at me and goes,
turn back around.
Nope. He just walks me all the way to the end. He goes, give this guy a 6-month deferment. 6 months later, the draft was over.
Yeah.
So after that, my wife and I just kept earning money, and we just said, okay, we're moving to Topanga. We moved over there in fall of '73. We ended up starting a new age business, selling incense and trippy stuff to health food stores and all that kinds of stuff, and which she still does. And meeting all the new age people, all the different people, like Follow Your Heart. They're a big multi-million-dollar industry right now. It's like we're at the foundation of the whole health food and yoga boom.
Wow.
And we knew everybody. And then because when I moved over the second time, I made friends with the guys in the Eagles. I knew the guys in Supertramp. I even sang on a Supertramp album. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like all these things just
started happening
in 11 years that we were in Topanga Canyon.
Yes.
It was an amazing thing. And then in '74, all of a sudden my neighbor goes, hey, I'm starting this little crafts fair called Topanga Days. And
I read about that. Topanga Days. It's how you started
pivot.
Back in what, 73, 74?
Yeah. And so anyway, she goes, would you run the music there? So my band, set up on this funky stage, and it was small at the time. And so it grew. So for the first 10 years, it was like that. And then I moved down here.
No, stay in Topanga. What were we going to say about?
Welcome back, everybody. Historic downtown Vista is open and waiting for you. 6 award-winning breweries, more than 40 restaurants, theaters, art, music, and fun shops from home decor and clothing to gems and even exotic birds and fish. The hometown charm that makes downtown Vista so special is swinging its doors open to say hello. Visit downtownvista.org to learn more. That's downtownvista.org. We look forward to seeing you soon. Ready to build exposure for your Vista business? Join the Vista is Open campaign, a free service that promotes Vista's creative and innovative businesses throughout the North County region. Add your company's special events to our calendar viewed by thousands each month. Get listed in our shopping and brewery directories. We'll also share your business story through regional and social media outlets, all at no cost to you. Visit vistaisopen.com to learn more. That's vistaisopen.com.
What we want to do is we want to get into Topanga Days County Fair.
Right.
And how you got involved, which you've just explained how you got involved, and tell us what it's all about and when it happens.
Yeah.
And,
so it's every Memorial Day weekend. It's a 3-day event. And so what happened the first year was that my band played all day. And so when it came around to doing a second one, I'm going, I don't want to be on stage for
the whole
4,
time.
5, 6 hours. You know, that's a lot, you know. Mm-hmm. So I thought, let's have our gear and our PA stuff, and we'll have opening guys sitting in on our equipment for the first 2 sets.
Okay.
So then I kind of started that theme.
Yeah.
And then that went for 25 years.
You planned an event, and then it took off from there.
It did. Well, we were the headliners for like 25 years. And then after that, so what happened, at one point I moved down here and she called me up and goes, "Oh, you need to come back and run the music." So I go, okay. So I just kept going back after that. I've been going back since.
Wow.
And so anyway.
Is it a large, I mean, it's a popular event in town? Or?
Well, that's what I'm saying is that what's happened through the years is that it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So in 2002, this gal, Jackie Kane, came in, and she'd been working with Leon Russell and a bunch of different people. And she goes, "What do you think of let's start hiring big bands?" Because this was the annual fundraiser for the Women's Club to help Meals on Wheels and the kids. And
that's important
all those things. So it was a big, big fundraiser. Even though everybody got paid, they still made a shitload of money with all the booths and the food and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was really, it was amazing that here I had moved down here, and all of a sudden I'm in a second phase that went on until the pandemic. I mean, I've been involved with 47 Topanga Days. So,
wow.
you know, it's like, I'm like, God, it's insane. And so at one point I was even in the Grand Marshal of the parade with Cloris Leachman. She was the belle of the ball.
Okay.
And it's like, you know, and so Topanga is just an amazing place. It just is. And it's like, I just can't even imagine.
I imagine. I mean, you had some cool neighbors and just people all around you, right? I mean, I've heard a lot of things about Topanga as an artist.
Well, the thing is what's far out, the first thing, I mean, I just got back over there the second time, and I made friends with the guys in the Eagles. Now, they just had 2 albums at the time, and they weren't big yet. Mm-hmm. They just had 2 albums out. And then Don Felder, who I met before he was in the Eagles, is a friend of mine. He gets pulled in. He's the guy that wrote the music for Hotel California. Mm-hmm. So he suddenly is in the Eagles. And then they do Best of My Love and Already Gone, and then they go through the roof with one of these nights. Suddenly they're the biggest friggin' band in America. Mm-hmm. So we're going to these shows for free because I'm friends with his wife and his kids and all this other stuff. And it's just like, so that's where I was just like, and I was playing at a place called the Corral all the time. And this is a place where Canned Heat came out of, and the band Spirit. Joni Mitchell played there. Neil Young played there. Mm-hmm. Donovan played there. I mean, this was one of those places. I met James Jamerson, the bass player for Motown there.
Oh, wow.
He was playing with my friend Tommy Ledden, who was Tom Petty's best friend and also Bernie of the Eagles' brother. Calls me up and he goes, "Man, you got to come in and see me, my band." He goes, "I got the best bass player in the world in my band." I go, "Who is your bass player?" He goes, "James Jamerson." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
And so I go down to the Corral, and because James, after Motown moved it to L.A., he never made residual stuff. They never paid him anything but scale back then. None of those guys. So when Motown moved to L.A., he was scrubbing around for gigs like anybody.
Sure.
So when I meet James Jamerson, he's wearing a cowboy shirt and a cowboy hat, and suddenly he's playing country rock.
Wow.
And I could shake his hand. I'm going, "Dude, you are the best player in the world." I mean, I just seriously, I've read interviews with Smokey Robinson where he said that Smokey had this thing where he stopped for coffee on the way to Motown all the time. Mm-hmm. And he would write a song on a napkin, lyrics, literally every time he sat there for coffee. First thing he would do when he got to Motown, he'd go, James, here's the melody. Give me what you got. Mm-hmm. Within 5 minutes, you'd have the bass part for My Girl. Right. Or Second That Emotion.
Yeah.
You go, God, how does this? And he played with one finger. Did you ever see him play? He mutes all the other fingers with these, mutes the strings with these three. Mm-hmm. And this guy is doing it all.
Wow.
I mean, and Paul McCartney, this guy's my favorite bass player. Mm-hmm. And Paul McCartney's a great bass player. But James Jamerson is his number one guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I mean, that's the thing. So this kind of stuff is always
it's all
been
happening
the most
around you.
Oh, it's just happening.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and then I was on the Supertramp album where I ended up singing backups on some stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I read this great book about this guy, Geoff Emerick, that he engineered all the Beatles stuff at Abbey Road with the Beatles. He mixed that album I'm on. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, the guy that mixed Abbey Road and Sgt. Pepper mixed an album that I sang on?
Right.
I
mean, and you actually got to a point where you're winning awards and stuff as well, right?
Well, no, I never won anything.
No, you mentioned the first San Diego Music Awards earlier.
Well, yeah, I was in a band called Bordertown. Bordertown was the most popular band in San Diego at the time. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, we won.
Just bringing it back local for you.
Yeah,
and bringing it back local. I've been trying to get this question in. I want to know, why don't we have in Vista a Memorial Day festival or something similar to that?
Well, you'd need a venue.
Well, we do have plenty of venues.
Yeah, I actually staged a benefit concert at Moonlight Amphitheater in '91, and I picked the wrong weekend because it was the hottest day of the year, and so we called it. It was for kids with cancer, and I can't even remember what the name of that. No, it was for abused kids. The concert was called Hands Off.
Okay.
And we did this Hands Off concert, and it was very lightly like 1/5 filled kind of thing. But still, I mean, Bordertown played there. My daughter's dance troupe played there, and it was a good thing. I mean, I'm always just really,
You've got a heavy sense of community, though, too.
Yeah. Which brings to mind, what have you been doing during the pandemic?
Well, when the pandemic hit, of course, gigs kind of ended. And so right before that happened, a year before that, I had finished an album by Bordertown singer Cece Porter, who's just an awesome singer and a great songwriter. And so she came over one day at the end of that project, and I happened to be listening to these old 4-track mixes that I did in Topanga Canyon of these songs, about 15 of these songs. And to me, I was like, me and my friends were just all playing on each other's stuff. I never really, there were a couple of them I knew that were good, but I didn't know they were all good. Mm-hmm. And she goes, you need to redo these songs. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going, really? She goes, yeah. So I spent the next year, right up to the day of the pandemic, finished it. And all of a sudden, there it was at the end of that whole year, and all of a sudden, it was a pandemic. Yeah. And so what happened after that is that she actually came down right at that point again, too. And she said, well, now you need to start writing songs again. Mm. So I said, well, God, because I already had these songs written. All I had to do was kind of rearrange them, bring them up to the present, and put them out. Yeah. So all of a sudden, I got to write new songs. Mm-hmm. Well, just finished last week. I just finished a 10-song CD.
Congratulations.
And so and then I've been working on my house. I built this insane fence and wall, all this kinds of stuff. So, I mean, I've been just really busy doing stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we in our neighborhood, because I live in the same neighborhood that you
do. You that guy down the street?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. So tell us about the neighborhood concerts.
Oh, yeah.
This past summer.
Well, I played different bands, but one of them was a Beatles group called Blackbird. We're an acoustic group. We're really good. The main guy, the guitar player, he actually is from Italy, and he was actually in a Beatles group that toured all over Europe. Mm-hmm. And he actually played an event where the Pope was there because he's from Italy.
Yeah.
And so his group is called Apple Pies because of Apple Recording Studio. That was the Beatles.
Okay.
Where, that's where, and their record label was called Apple Records, the
Okay.
Beatles. So they called their band Apple Pies.
Okay.
And so anyway, when we met in 2006, we just kind of did this benefit because my daughter had been in a really bad accident. And we were doing fundraising for her. And so we ended up just kind of, I already was there with my group, and I had all this percussion and stuff, congas, bongos and stuff. And I said, hey, I'll play with you, And we started singing together, and we had this harmony plan, and we went, wow, God, we ought to do this. So we've been doing it since, and it's a really cool thing because we're acoustic. I mean, as soon as you try to go electric in a Beatles group, people expect the wigs, the suits, all the costume changes. Yeah. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So we're an acoustic Beatles group.
Okay.
And so anyway, so when the pandemic hit, I thought, well, it'd be really neat to do concerts like in my driveway. Because we live in that small street.
Yeah.
So at the top, as soon as I tell everybody, it's like everybody's able to put their lawn chairs out there, sit on the curb, and not many people drive up and down. And so we get to play, So we've done 3 of those out there. And then we did one again when the pandemic ended. We did one again. And then now one of the guys, we added a 3rd guy, but he just moved up to Arcata, California. But, but we just did a gig, God, when was it? It was like, we did a friend of mine, so they did their vows. They did re-up their vows. 25th anniversary of their wedding vows. So we just played last week.
That's cool. So now there are a lot of kids, right, that want to start bands. They're in the band in school, in high school, and so forth, right? And you were just mentioning covering music. I see a lot of these guys when they're just starting out. That's kind of like the way they kind of get out there, get into playing in clubs.
Well, that's the only way to really, when you. Especially as a drummer, anybody, as anything really, but for a drummer, for me, it's like, it's always been a big exploration because I can't read music or any of that stuff. But the thing is, it's always been about the groove and listening. And when I got into Border Town, it was like, this was the best band in San Diego. Mm-hmm. And suddenly I thought, God, what am I even doing in this group? Mm-hmm. But when we would play, they had the best sounding gear and everybody was listening. Nobody played a note that didn't belong.
Sure.
And they really knew how to milk an intro and to pull people into the band. It's like they just didn't blast and play rock and roll, right. But they could cover country, New Orleans grooves, reggae. I mean, it was just so broad. Mm-hmm. And as a musician, I was like,
that's
God,
the key.
This is the stuff. And I'll tell you what really changed my life earlier in the 70s when I was living in Topanga is that my friend, who was actually the guy on the Life magazine cover of him and the girl dancing at Woodstock. This guy, Fantuzzi.
Okay.
Yeah, so Fantuzzi calls me and he goes, hey, I got a gig, a recording session with Bumps Blackwell. And I didn't know who that was. Bumps Blackwell was Little Richard's producer.
Oh, okay.
So suddenly I'm in the studio with him. But prior to that, so I'm going, God, it's like at that time, the only reggae song I knew was Washington Detectives by Elvis Costello. And that was it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going, Jesus, I got to do some researching here, So I got Legend by Bob Marley, and I just did nothing but listen to that. And luckily for me, the night before the session, this great reggae band played in Santa Monica at Madame Wong's. I went down there and for 4 hours sat at the table next to this, watching this drummer. Mm-hmm. And so when I walked in the next day to do these songs with Bumps Blackwell, we were doing a reggae session. And I was still nervous, but I thought, well, I picked up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And Bumps, the reason they call him Bumps, because his eyes were so bad, his glasses looked like Coke bottles. And so he'd bump into stuff. So he just, so anyway, so he'd be standing next to me and listening to these tracks, and he leaned into me and he goes, you nailed it, man.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
I know, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah, that's who you want to hear from, too. So, for these kids that are in band class, right, or whatever, getting ready to start a band or trying to figure out their way through the music industry and being successful, right? Because at the beginning, that's what we kind of mentioned in the business lesson. It's like, you have to, if you're an artist, you can't just do it just once. You got to get people to keep coming back in order if you want to, make money. You got to produce something. So what kind of recommendations would you give to these folks who want to do this for a living?
The thing is you know what they say, the thing that I had never had a plan. Never.
Don't have a plan.
No, I didn't. And the thing is that when you do what you love, the money will follow. And so all I've ever done is did what I did. And somehow the universe always, because I lived a code of honesty.
Sure.
And I was a good guy. It's like I was at one with the universe. I was not unkind to anyone. I had no hatred in me. And so those are the things that keep people into bad life choices, or too much alcohol or drugs or any of those things. And I was so grateful that I got free of all that.
Sure.
And so for me, it was a blessing. Every day to me was a blessing spiritually, that I'm lucky I get to play music. I'm lucky that I married a really great woman. We run this business together that's actually paying off. We have this child together that everything that happened, we own our own home, and we've always just done what we do.
That's right.
And I'm going, God, how did this even happen? Mm-hmm. I look back on all this all the time and I go, really?
Yeah.
It's like...
That's a hell of a life story.
It is. And I look back on all this stuff and I think, God, I almost died like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. Well, I was nervous for you a couple of times during this podcast.
But I've literally had close to death experiences so many times that it's shocking for me to drive off a cliff and go over a house. There was another time when I was living in Sierra Madre in '69, my neighbor and I downstairs, his name was Harry, he was from Philadelphia, he was living downstairs from me. It was raining so hard in Sierra Madre, the creek was overflowing. It was insane. The dam was overflowing. It was insane. And so that double apartment above that garage had these stairs going up all the way to the top bedroom of the upstairs, where there was these double doors. Well, you'd go to the main door that was a hallway that you had to get buzzed into either the downstairs or my house. Mm-hmm. So we're in our house and I'm hearing all this stuff, and all of a sudden I hear this kind of noise stuff, and I'm going, wow, what was that? So Harry meets me down in the hallway and he goes, man, let's look outside. So we walk out and we walk up the steps a little bit to almost to where the double doors are to my upper bedroom.
Yes.
But we're getting poured. It's raining and nothing's happening. So we go, well, let's go in. We walk in the door. He walks in. I walk upstairs. I walk back, and the whole mountainside just came down where we were standing.
Oh.
Exactly. I looked out I look out my window and suddenly I have concrete, mud, rocks just stacked up right where I was standing like 30 seconds ago.
Yes.
But I've had multiple times when stuff like that's happened.
Yeah.
And I'm just going,
you made it.
I made it. And I just it blows my mind. But I think it's because I'm okay if God wants to take me.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? It's like
you're walking in peace.
I am. I'm not holding on to anything. And every time I go to bed at night, I just think, did I hurt anyone? Did I lie?
Good. Good.
So if I'm okay with God, it's like, it's really His choice. He can pull me out at any time.
Yeah.
So I even wrote a new song on my new album. It's called Better Be Ready.
Yeah.
On my new album, it's You Better Be Ready.
I like it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So Randy, if someone wants to contact you for a performance, how do they get in contact with you?
Well, they can call me on my phone, or they can send me an email.
Okay. Well,
I've got your email address, pepperlandrecording@gmail.com.
That's
right.
Yes,
and
sir.
pepperlandrecording.net is the website of the studio, correct?
Yes, it is.
Good. You're not retiring yet, huh?
I will not.
So there's no yet.
There'll never be a yet. If Paul McCartney can fill stadiums and he's 80 years old, I'm going, you know what? I still got a lot in me.
I love it.
In fact, I just had a rehearsal with my friends that I was in a band with like 10 years ago. Last night we're doing a gig up in Dana Point Yacht Club, and they called me up. I used to get these calls all the time, but I really haven't played drums because there's been no gigs. So they called me and they go, hey, can you come and play in 2 weeks? And I thought, God, I don't even have a band. So I called up Tom and Lana. I go, hey, you guys want to play in a band? Want to get the band back together? So I was over their house last night, and we're going to play a show there.
Yeah. You're not stopping.
No, but it's far out because I have a set of drums in my studio, in my vocal booth. I actually have a set of drums in there, and anytime I do vocals, I'll cover it up to get the ambiance off of that. I'll cover it with a blanket or something.
Yeah.
But any other time, because I don't use it all the time, I mean, I just leave the drums there, and I'll walk by and I'll sit down and go, okay,
That's right.
I play,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Never stop playing.
Never
Keep playing.
I never
Now,
stop playing.
Randy, we
Yes.
have to ask you, when are you coming back to do a performance for us? An actual
Oh,
performance?
here. That would probably have to be with the Beatles duo.
Okay.
I don't know when that can be. I have to kind of run it by him.
Okay.
But I would like to do that. Yeah, and I'm sure Enrico
That'd
would
be
like
great.
to do it too. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have some fun.
I think we did one of those one time. My surf band did a thing for this place in Oceanside. It was a radio station over there somewhere.
Okay.
Had us over there, and we did one of these kinds of situations. So
We'll have some fun.
Another question. Can you give us the name of a couple of your latest CDs? Or
well, the first one I did of the redos. Well, I actually did a one called Crossroad. This was like in 2006. Which what it was songs that were songwriter friends of mine that I admired over the years. So I did versions of their tunes. So I have one that's called Crossroad. And actually, when I went to London and I went to Liverpool because of the Beatles situation, I went to Abbey Road Studios and I did the Crosswalk. So when I named that particular CD, it was called Crossroad, and I was crossing the road.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, so that one is just one that I did. It was cover tunes. But then when Cece talked me into doing the Topanga Song Cycle, that's the one I did.
I saw that on Amazon.
That's what I wrote those songs in Topanga Canyon, and that was a 15-song thing because that's how many songs I wrote over 73 to 81.
I think there was a song on there called "One with You," I believe.
Yes.
That was my favorite on that album.
The one that everybody talks about the most on that album is "I Really Like You."
Okay.
It's like a Randy Newman tune.
I'll have to go back and check it out.
Listen to that one because that one is the groove on it. I've recorded that over 3 times over decades, and it's always the same arrangement. I didn't have to change it. It's one of those perfect songs. And actually, when I was doing my thing, I was finished with that song, and I had a friend of mine recording an album in my house, and he kept coming in when I would be listening to these mixes and stuff. He goes, "Do you think I could? You could just mute your vocal and let me do your song?"
Yeah.
So his mom, it was my friend's son, and the mom calls me up and she goes, I said, "Look, it's not even copyrighted." She goes, "I'm going to pay for the copyright. He really wants this on his album." I'm going,
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was my first copyright. I'm going, cool,
That's awesome.
So I copyrighted the rest of everything. And then, of course, and then when it was all done, and my friend Cece came down and told me to write new songs. And then suddenly now I've got this new album.
Good.
So I just sent away on that one. I did the copyrights on that
Getting
too.
impressed up.
So yeah.
I love it, man. Congratulations. Yeah, you really are not stopping.
Okay.
Really
Randy,
not
keep
stopping.
going.
That's Randy Renner, guys. Really thank you for being with us. Pepperlandrecording.net, pepperlandrecording@gmail.com if you want to reach out to him for booking or anything else. We really appreciate you being with us, Randy, and telling this story. It was an amazing story, man. That was a trip right there. Thank you, Pop, for sitting in with us.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome.
It's all a blur to me, but at the same time, I'm amazed at times when I look back on all this stuff. Because
Anybody who can remember back to 1 year old.
I've always had a good memory.
You got it. And you tell a great story. We appreciate it, Randy.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Same business, different day. Thank you for listening to Same Business, Different Day. We truly appreciate your support. Please like, subscribe, and leave a nice comment on all platforms. It really helps our show. The Same Business, Different Day podcast is produced by A Different Day Radio, Star Fox Media, and James Russell.